Hey, Robyn Openshaw here. I'm the green smoothie girl. I've stood for medical freedom for 18 years online, but 4 years now I've been teaching about Bitcoin, which is about your financial freedom. And I would love to join everybody in celebrating that Trump just got rid of the SAB 121 language. Let's not go into what SAB 121 is, except to say it was a Biden era administration memo that made it illegal for banks to custody your Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoiners are cheering because banks can now custody your Bitcoin. And I would just like to say that the reason I am opposed to this is yes, I get it. This will get Granny and the boomers who own 60 or 85% of the wealth in this country to be able to do next to nothing and just click a couple clicks in their centralized banking apps and online and at the bank, and they'll be able to buy Bitcoin, and this will make your Bitcoin price shoot up. I get it. You think that's really exciting. You're going to get a lot richer. The price of Bitcoin will go up in the short term. So, what's not to like? Here's my problem with it. Why did we get into Bitcoin in the first place? Those of you who were involved in the first 15 years, okay? I wish I was involved when Bitcoin was a fraction of 1 cent. I don't think I would have listened to anybody who would have said that this would become a $100,000 asset. I don't think I was ready to hear it back then. I was ready to hear it when I was ready to hear it, which is March of 2020, when I started buying when Bitcoin was $8,000. Now, back then, I didn't imagine that countries would get in the game and start seeing that with their fiat currency in decline and no end in sight that they would start buying, which the US is now doing in Trump 2.0. My problem with the banks holding Bitcoin is that that's why we bought Bitcoin in the first place, to get our store of value, the excess energy that we have stored in the form of money that was in decline. 2% inflation. We're like the frog boiling on the stove, and they just turn it up a degree at a time, and we lose 2% of our buying power a year. And we all just kind of snooze through that and just assume that it's inevitable. It's not, it's theft by the government. But then it went way, way up. Okay, when they started printing money to bail everybody out after the COVID crisis, and our unemployment went to 14% overnight, and everybody was in trouble, especially small businesses that got closed down. So, we wanted to be in Bitcoin to get free of the tyranny of centralized banks, okay? Where your wealth manager puts you in vehicles that make your wealth manager money. So your wealth manager is probably a lot richer than you are. And I don't know if you've noticed, but you probably haven't really gotten more wealthy with your wealth manager growing your assets. And maybe your stocks have gone up, your stock and bond portfolio, maybe it's gone up, but have you compared how much your stock and bond portfolio has gone up compared to the loss in purchasing power of the dollar? So the reason most of us came into Bitcoin in the first place was wanting to extract our store of value from the failing dollar and put it in an asset that the banks didn't have access to and couldn't do crazy things that they've been doing since forever, like the fact that they took gold and they did all this hypothecation. We could talk all day about hypothecation. I won't bore you. Like they've done with all kinds of assets where, for instance, there's about 800 people who think they own every 1 ounce of actual gold that exists in the world. So that's literally how crazy our financial system is in these same banks that they're now going to let custody Bitcoin so that people who don't want to do any work and don't really understand what they own, they can buy some Bitcoin, and sure, that'll increase the demand for Bitcoin and it'll send the price up in the short term. But I am totally opposed to it. I do not think it's a good thing. I want to share this alternative perspective with you because Bitcoiners are rejoicing. There's somebody with a longer range view here and there saying this is where the banks start stealing your Bitcoin. Okay, that's exactly who we didn't want involved in our Bitcoin. We didn't want the government and the central banks involved in our Bitcoin. I don't like it. I hope that we keep spreading the message of Bitcoin and that people learn what it is and why they want to own it, and why the last thing in the world they want to do is own it through a bank. That includes the 11 banks who were approved to have ETFs in 2024. But now the Trump administration has thrown down the gauntlet and eliminated the barrier to entry for all banks to get involved in it. It'll be really interesting to see how your financial advisor, who will just make fun of Bitcoin to you right now, as soon as it monetizes for your financial manager, your wealth advisor, oh, suddenly they'll be interested in it and they'll want to put you in Bitcoin. Anyway, I do think the short to midterm, it's going to be a positive for the price of Bitcoin. I wouldn't deny that. I can see why people who just want to hurry and get rich faster are excited about the banks getting in on Bitcoin. I can understand the argument that they make that it's going to increase mass adoption. I'm just really frustrated, as I often am, that people don't see the second and third order consequences. Just like everybody was like, cool, the government just sent me a few $1,000 in 2020. What they didn't think of is, yeah, and they sent everybody else a couple $1,000 too, and they're going to do it again. And they're just keeping us all solvent while they dump like a third more money into the money supply, which is eventually going to create mass inflation. And here we are. We're now experiencing the mass inflation. And frankly, it's better than anywhere else in the world. So it's still better. We're still better off than most of the other countries of the world. See, we can print money here since we have the global reserve currency, and we export most of our inflation. Other countries feel the inflation worse than we do because a lot of dollars are being used and traded outside the US. So they call it the euro dollar. Now, I get it. Most of the people who listen to me are like, what are you talking about, Robyn? You're using all kinds of jargon that I don't understand. Listen, I had to put a lot of time in to be able to talk intelligently about things that are so macro level, so way up here, that it's hard to bring it down to help you understand how this affects your daily life. But I'm telling you, this does affect your daily life. And so go to takeactionforfreedom.com, join our mastermind. I'm just starting this podcast on YouTube, starting a new YouTube channel. Even though I've had one for years and years and years, a different podcast that was about health and wellness, I'm starting this one because I think women are getting left behind in Bitcoin. I think Gen X is sort of lukewarm to it. They can understand it. They're more technical. We've had to use technology in our careers. The boomers are mostly blowing it off unless their financial advisor is going to tell them to do it. Most of them won't do it, but we do have boomers in our mastermind, and every Wednesday night for 90 minutes, we're devoting ourselves to learning about this. You can't miss this one. The world is changing under your feet. The good news is, if you have millennial children like I do, I have 4 of them, this is their chance. This is the millennials' chance to get back on top. People who live in Bitcoin, life is getting cheaper and cheaper. Okay, you think that life is getting more and more expensive, but that's because you're in dollars. So your dollars are losing value against every kind of asset in the world. So got to get in and start learning about it. If all you do is just buy yourself some little bit of Bitcoin and call it good, then it's going to go up 20% and you're going to sell it and you're going to think that you're a genius because you didn't know what you had. You have to understand. You have to understand it deeply. You have to put the time in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have created an educational community. Okay, you have to get educated on it, or else you don't have the commitment to it. You don't have the depth of knowledge to know why you're doing it, where to hold it. It sure as heck isn't JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo, who, mark my words, they're going to get in on the game. They don't miss out on an opportunity to make money. So we talk about everything from how to hold it, what the pros and cons are, and everything in between. And we have for 4 years. Good luck bringing us a question that we haven't already answered. But we love beginners. We specialize in beginners. Please check out the link below. You can get a free month. Use coupon code Robyn. That's my name, ROBYN, all caps, to get another $50 off. Okay, it's not expensive to start learning and start learning with us. When I started realizing that I better find a better store of value than the dollar and dollar instruments and T-bills and bonds and the stock market, when I started figuring that out, March of 2020, I was motivated. And all I had was go out on YouTube and just slog my way through a bunch of crypto bros who were mostly the age of my children. So we want a more linear path and a more back and forth, let's have a conversation about it path to educate you so that you know why. Why would I start an entire Bitcoin channel? Why would I do that when I could literally be retired and sitting on a beach? Okay, I've made more in Bitcoin in the last 4.5 years than I've made in my entire life put together. And before I started investing in Bitcoin, I could have retired and quit. Okay, retirement's not in my vocabulary. I'm planning for legacy at this point, and I think this is worth your time. I really do. I really think you'll be glad if you start learning, because this really is a sea change in how we see money and wealth building and how we move forward in this crazy digital world. For Gen X, we didn't get to opt out of it like a lot of the boomers did. We didn't get to opt out of it. We were forced into a completely different way of doing business. Well, your financial system is radically changing as well. And the blockchain is disrupting virtually every industry, whether you're aware of it or not. So we want to teach you how that's happening and what that has to do with you and your family and how you can front run countries and giant public companies before they get in on it and drive the price to 1 million and beyond. So join me in the mastermind every Wednesday night. If you miss, that's okay. We have it recorded and you can get in on it later, but it's really important that you start learning. This isn't one of those things that you just get your broker to buy it and then just camp on it for 10 years and check in on it every couple of years. This is not one of those things. We got to teach you some first principles first. So hopefully I see you on Wednesday nights. If you miss, you can listen later, and I'll see you next time.